We are extremely rich here in Burkina Faso, and we never cease to repeat it. And today we are undertaking to reorganize our society. I invite you to listen to his whole speech until the end. You will understand why this leader is making so much noise in and outside of Africa. When we talk about dignity and when we talk about honor, if you are not self-sufficient, then you have no dignity. When the father goes back home at the end of the day and doesn't have grain to put on the table for his son, he cannot speak about dignity. The whole family will live in indignity, because the woman will have to fight with whichever way she can, and whichever way you can imagine to bring food to the table. There is no dignity when one cannot eat to his fill. There's no dignity when you have to extend a begging hand. We are trying today to modernize a little bit. It is because of that we have created this new cooperative, which has the objective of helping us exploit and properly commercialize our precious natural resources. And I'm speaking primarily of gold here. This gold that our young people extract, that they sell at an incredibly cheap price, is helping promote terrorism, and that is then taking out of the country without us benefiting from it. We have decided to create this cooperative to take back control of our mining operations and give the ability to our young to produce by using mechanized means. The introduction to this speech shows where the real heart and real intent of Ibrahim Traore lies. It also shows his acute understanding of the situation on the ground and where the ills of his country are coming from. From the plundering of natural resources, which are benefiting the terrorists, to the loss of jobs for the youth, which culminates into a detrimental and spiraling economic situation for his people. This reminds us all of the initiatives that had been launched by the then President Thomas Sankara. Let's also make sure that Africans' market is a market for Africans. Produce in Africa, transform in Africa, and consume in Africa. Let's produce what we have need for and consume what we have produced. I've come to show you today cotton material that has been grown in Burkina Faso, weaved in Burkina Faso, and fashioned in Burkina Faso for the sole purpose of making clothes for people of Burkina. My whole delegation today is clothed by artisans from Burkina Faso. There is not one thread of our clothes today that comes from Europe or United States. I am not doing the catwalk, but I simply wanted to say that we should accept to leave as Africans. It is the only way to live with freedom, and it is the only way to live with dignity. The nation, or death, we will overcome. Today, instructions have been given to the Ministry of Finance so that we can create a common fund and support our youth in entrepreneurship. We will not ask you to start from zero, but there will be a minimum required so that we can accompany you and so that we can help you. In addition to that, we are putting all efforts so that physical considerations allow for the creation of this fund quickly. An oldie so that you can be accompanied in your journey within the first few years, and that you may not encounter too many difficulties. With all of this, we are also thinking a lot about professional education. It is one of the aims of our administration. We have many unemployed youth with university diplomas. It does not suffice today to study and have a diploma. It is also imperative that we can learn new skills that can be applied to practical jobs. We are looking to reorient a good chunk of our youth towards trade skills. This means that we will have to create mini-centers for education of trade skills. We need to teach our youth multiple different skills and trades, because over here we benefit from a lot of natural resources. So there are a lot of reforms that are coming towards our youth. And throughout the world, we have come to understand that we have a lot of resources that we can make valuable towards other countries. We have made a conscious, focused effort on agriculture, which is very important for us. Because, as I was saying before, agricultural self-sufficiency is a battle. When we talk about dignity, and when we talk about honor, if you are not self-sufficient, then you have no dignity. When the father goes back home at the end of the day and doesn't have grain to put on the table for his son, he cannot speak about dignity. The whole family will live in indignity. Because the woman will have to fight with whichever way she can, and whichever way you can imagine, to bring food to the table. There is no dignity when one cannot eat to his fill. There's no dignity when you have to extend a begging hand. So what closely here, this new form of neo-colonialism, which has for objective to turn our youth into beggars, into people who constantly need support. And we will fight for this self-sufficiency. When you meet with mobile money companies and tell them to direct the funds of about 80 billion to youth structural programs, they refuse. This is a clear warning for us. The objective is to keep us perpetually dependent, as in this case, perpetually in debt, and prevent you from attending financial freedom. And every time they will only give you a little bit and tell you to stay where you are. Do not be afraid to launch yourself into business ventures. Do not be afraid to try new businesses. Not easy. You will falter, then you will fall on your knees. While you're on your knees, take the opportunity to pray and get back up to try again. Never stop trying. And even those who already have a job somewhere, don't leave it to yourself, to this job only. Because our generation is in the system, that is a little more complicated than the norm. They have taught us to only have a job at a desk, to wait for the salary at the end of the month and not do anything else. This will not help you achieve happiness. It simply will not. Your salary has to help you develop something else. I am a soldier, but I'm also a businessman, because we are only allowed to do agriculture and farming. And I'm happy that the elders who put those restrictions in place had the future of our country in mind. We tried it out, and we saw that it was very hard. But just like anything else, if we persevere, we can end up with a very positive outcome. So I've encouraged you not to get discouraged. For those who have entrepreneurship in mind, continue to try and try and try. The road ahead is always full of obstacles, but you should not stop. You will end up succeeding. We are extremely rich here in Burkina Faso, and we never cease to repeat it. Some of the agreements and texts that had been signed were very constraining for our country. This was causing us to have a lot of economical difficulties and preventing our economic growth. Today, thanks to you, we are in the process of rewriting a lot of these agreements so that we can give to our nations what they truly deserve. It is in this context that when we look at the domain of mining at individual scale, a lot of our young men find themselves on artisanal sites in conditions that are very harsh, very similar to the conditions that were present in Europe in the 1800s. When men had to enter tunnels that they have to dig themselves, our young continue to leave this experience. We are trying today to modernize a little bit. It is because of that that we have created this new cooperative which has the objective of helping us exploit and properly commercialize our precious natural resources. And I'm speaking primarily of gold here. This gold that our young people extract, that they sell at an incredibly cheap price, is helping promote terrorism. And that is then taking out of the country without us benefiting from it. We have decided to create this cooperative to take back control of our mining operations and give the ability to our young to produce by using mechanized means. It is also our objective that each region can have and produce his own specialty. You could very well be in the domain of agriculture. We have water reserves and lakes spread out throughout the country. rivers that flow, and canals here and there. But all of these have not been exploited at all. And this we are trying to do in every region. This is why I have decided to have a representative of each region in the government. This process is underway. They will have the responsibility of taking the preoccupations of our young, of our women, and of our people in general, so that we can take actions where it matters the most. Because this fight that we are undertaking against terrorism should not only be undertaken with weapons, but also with economic development. As long as the young do not have jobs, they will always gravitate towards where it is easiest to make money, and it is also that which we must fight. We have identified a lot of key points and a lot of key areas that we need to address fairly quickly, and I have mandated the Ministry of Agriculture to start undertaking action towards these points. As I said before, our objective will be that we must attain agriculture self-reliance. So we, in each region, we will put great value towards these water sources and these agricultural improvements. So this is to invite everybody to start work and to give dignity back to our country. There are a lot of other vectors of work, but we will not be able to detail them all here today. The Ministry of Agriculture will start action, as I was saying before, and will include the National Council of Youth, which I hope will be the major incubator to help move this forward. I hope not to be too long, but I would like to tell you today to not be afraid to take a risk. Entrepreneurship implies taking risks. Initiate something. Do not be afraid to take risks. Without risks, there is no pleasure. Take flight. Do not be afraid. We will assist you as much as we can. And for those who are on the front line today, we are doing our maximum to provide them with everything they need. So I would like to use this stage today to give recognition to all those youth who have taken arms without any fear and in full dedication to the country. In the field, in the rain, and in the mud, everywhere, we ask them to go and fight to take back our country, and to give back to our country what we call territorial integrity. Everybody can participate in this fight, not necessarily by taking arms, but also by helping via economic development. And for this, we are counting a lot on the young ones. I was saying before that I was going to push the great economic operators of the country to create initiatives for the young. So be ready. We have created the APEC to create enterprises that we need to put in place. Because, as we were saying before, it is inconceivable that we grow tomatoes here, but we import tomato paste. It is absurd that we have all the oleagine products here, but we are not able to transform them. We have launched it, and I encourage you all to subscribe to it. Subscribe en masse to it, because we are going to create our enterprises locally. Yes, imperialist forces will try to derail us. They will try to drive you away from this objective, but trust me and think far ahead. Think very far ahead, and think about what we need to do. Thanks again to all these young people who have come from all over Africa to come and support their friends from Burkina Faso. We thank you and we invite you to have a very pleasant day in Burkina Faso. We hope that you can all return in peace and that you can go back, strengthened with this knowledge that you can spread all over West Africa, because this fight that we are undertaking is not just the fight here in Burkina Faso, but it's a fight that we have to undertake all over Africa. It is time that we wake up and that we no longer have to go and cross the ocean and have to go and die in the sea in order to go and find the El Dorado that has been oh so sold to us. We can create it right here. Put yourself to work, and I think it is very possible. So thank you again for coming to support us in this moments of sharing and reflection. On this, I would like to see that we should all remain vigilant, because the fight that we have to undertake is a very long one, a very hard one, but it is not impossible, because we know that it is possible to achieve it. The nation, or death. We will overcome. Thank you, my friends. Now, I challenge anyone to find any of those, quote, democratically elected leaders, end quote, that have been supported for decades in all African countries who have spoken in terms even close to this. When we say that Ibrahim Traore is the reincarnation of the beloved Thomas Sankara, it is not misspeaking. It is our hope that he does not find the same fate. As you have seen on previous reports on this channel, there have already been multiple attempts on his life. That is, because if he's anywhere close to successful on the programs that he would like to enact in order to reform his country, then those who are benefiting from the status quo stand to lose, and to lose a lot. Just with the gold production alone, Burkina Faso could very quickly transform its monetary reserve and put them in a position of strength when it comes to negotiating rates for natural resources. In addition, this will enable them to also purchase equipment and build infrastructure programs that will further transform the economy of the nation. In fact, in Burkina Faso itself, the long-sitting president Blaise Compaoré, the same one who had enacted a coup against Thomas Sankara and got him assassinated, presided over the country for 3.5 decades. His coup against Thomas Sankara was funded by France, and he was strongly supported by the Western powers, and yet throughout his tenure, economic indicators for Burkina Faso went backwards. Agricultural self-reliance disappeared. Poverty was rampant. No great programs were launched to alleviate the suffering of the people. Natural resources were being siphoned out of the country at great rate, benefiting the neo-colonialist at the detriment of precious African lives. During that same tenure, Blaise Compaoré was supported and kept in power by France and other Western powers. It is not a stretch to say that, through their actions, they have indirectly caused the death of tens of thousands of Burkinabés, and I am being generous. When you total the number of kids who have died from malaria, malnutrition, and then when you add the number of women that have died in childbirth, all of them preventable, and then those who have died in the desert trying to cross to get to North Africa before taking a boat and drowning in the Mediterranean, then my figure is surely low. A literal genocide in slow motion. Now multiply that by the number of African countries that have lived the same fate. All these just so that countries in Europe and the Western world can have natural resources for cheap instead of innovating and getting their people to be more resilient. Those same people who in turn dare to utter towards the Africans that they are lazy and do not know how to build a civilization. A true stand-up joke at a continental scale. In our channel, you will find a lot of content about true African history, where we lay out the incredible deeds of previous civilizations started and maintained by the ingenuity of Africans and Afro-descendants. You also find occasional newsreels. If you want to support our work, there are multiple ways to do so. You can find the support links in the description below. By supporting us, you are helping spread the truth about our history and shine a light on the Afro-descendant perspective. Join us and see how those who are said to be without history birthed civilization itself.